Today, I want to take you through a new piece of scripture. And this is one that you have to take it completely literally. In fact, you have to have faith that it's going to work. And the history of each individual element matters. And so you want to really wrap your minds around exactly what it's saying. We'll do an analysis of the individual words, and then at the end, come to what it is that is, required of us. And of course, I'm talking about French toast. And you can see here that you need 2 eggs, just 2, not 3, not 1, but 2. And that you need milk. Now, not just any kind of white liquid will do. It has to be milk, and cow's milk preferably. I know some of you have tried to get away with doing other things, and it's like, well, that's close to the same color, and so I'm going to try it anyway. No. Like I said, literal interpretation. It has to be exactly the same thing. And okay, so what am I doing here? If you rationally understand every aspect of this, and you understand the eggs, what the milk is, powdered sugar, all of the ingredients, and you even might have some experience with some of the ingredients, and you have a perfect rational knowledge of what it is. At the end of the recipe, do you have the experience of eating French toast? No, obviously not, right? So literal interpretation for something like this just doesn't matter. And it's completely beside the point. We could spend all day trying to rationally understand exactly what's going on here and all of the reactions and why it is that it has to be eggs and what that does for the recipe and all of these other things. Talk about the history of how it is that my, great-great-grandmother used this recipe and it's been passed down for generations and is an inviolable law in my family and so on. And it's all the same kind of thing. But at the end of the day, nothing about that is going to give you the experience of eating the French toast, except for eating the French toast. Now, what I'm asking here is essentially this. Is the scripture that you are familiar with, is it asking you to believe something, or is it asking you to do something? And if ultimately it's asking you to do something, and the experience that you get out of doing it is what matters, then no amount of literal interpretation, rational understanding, or even analogical, typological, and whatnot, any other kind of interpretation, none of that's going to make any difference. You can spend as long as you want with the text itself, with the recipe, and you're never going to get any closer to that experience of actually eating French toast unless you actually go through and taste it yourself. And once you taste it, that first bite gives you something that not only the recipe can't give you, but no amount of discussion about the recipe afterwards can take away. And so once you have tasted it, you know it. And you know it in a sense that you cannot doubt it. You cannot take it away. You can't get rid of that belief. You can't get rid of that experience. And there was nothing that you had before it that was the same at all. And so I think this is key to understanding what's going on here, because it may be the case that if you go back and you just, kind of do some sortilege and open to your favorite passage of scripture and, try and see what's going on there, instead of reading it in a very modern context and saying, okay, it's asking me to believe something, or this is, how I have to act, or, something like that. Is it asking you to do something? Is it asking you to actually go through and have an experience? And that's the kind of thing that we don't commonly ask. But I suspect if you go through and you actually look at these things, then you'll find that a surprising amount of the time, it's probably asking you to do something and to experience something rather than just to believe something. Now, in case you think this is just utter heresy and that I'm making a parody of scripture here, this is, of course, exactly the same kind of thing that Meister Eckhart did, where he said that, how do you know if the wine in your cellar is good? No amount of talk about it is going to do any good. If somebody else has tasted it, it doesn't do any good. Any other aspect, any other thing in the world, nothing is going to help. There's no other experience. There's no other discussion. There's no intellectualization that's going to help. The only way that you can get to know it, he says, is to taste it for yourself. And ultimately, that's the kind of thing that's behind not only Eckhart's Christianity, but a lot of religions. And I think you will find that if we set down our modern, lens that we look through religion with and say, oh, it's just faith, or it's just belief, or it's these, axioms that we have to live by, and you read it with an eye to, is it asking me to do something? Is it trying to get me to experience something? Then I think you might find that it's a little bit more like the recipe for French toast than you might imagine.